Oh my God, your pussy feels so good. It's a good feeling pussy. Oh God, oh how I love your pussy. And I love to fuck your pussy, and I love eating you out.
Get some man! What the rock is cooking!
Recording live from count 'em, two locations. This is Pass the Rock. I'm Patrick, and this week I'm joined by one man, Jacob, aka Bethke.
What up, people?
And I might chop off that intro. That I forgot just how aggressive that was, so we might.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know how YouTube censors work, but I know like when you hover over a video, that might be like, is that the first thing that someone will just hover over and then it's just calling them a pussy?
Yeah.
I don't hate that.
We'll see. We'll see
Is
how I
that
feel.
you have to establish a brand, you know? Man.
Quick note here, mea culpa on my part. I screwed up. I recorded an hour with Cesar this morning. That's probably not gonna see the light of day because I did it wrong. So you could like watch it and you could hear me really well, but you won't be able to know what Cesar's talking about. And he talked about 80% of the time, so it's not really worth anyone seeing. So my apologies. My apologies to Cesar for wasting an hour of his life. And then we're just going to go ahead and try to cover some of that here and finish up the whole week.
It can be a cut in the vault one day.
I forgot to turn that on. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just hand this off to Bethke real quick so we can get started.
Yeah, we'll do a fairly regular rotation that we usually do, even though we don't have C's. Trying to hit all the major points before the holidays set in. So we're going to start with the world champions. You heard it here first. Not first. You heard it here many, many times. World champion Texas Rangers. Little bit of news coming out of this. There's some great stuff that I want to talk about that's exciting. Its legacy, it's building for the culture of the team. There's another thing, though, where there's just a lot of controversy and a lot of news, and we'll be getting good SEO this week thanks to Max Scherzer, but I'm not sure how much everyone will agree with everything said.
That's fair.
The first thing we'll talk about is the one everyone is excited about in the baseball world, and that's Shohei Ohtani's looming contract. Max Scherzer made a pitch saying winning is better than money. Interesting approach because I don't want to be the team not lowballing Ohtani going into this deal, but it kind of seemed like he was tipping his hand as that he already knew that. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it's lowballing. It's just we won't be able to give him the most money unless Ray Davis decides he just wants to pay luxury tax for the next 5 years. That gets larger and larger. You know, that whole game, because there's not a salary cap, but there is a luxury tax.
That's where I'm wondering, like, why does Max feel so confident that they wouldn't do that? You know, is it already something they're aware of?
Because they're already there.
He knows that
they don't have
DeGrom are on the books.
They don't have money outside of paying a luxury tax next year, and then with Ohtani, that means you're signing it up for a long time.
Right. Well, it's worth a shot, but a fair point on the CBA side of that, and why the Rangers probably wouldn't do it. But we still appreciate Scherzer for trying to throw his pitch out there, even though I'm not sure that. I don't know if it matters. For a lot of reasons, I still feel like this dude's going to stay on the West Coast, but mostly
it makes the most sense.
Mostly, I just want to live in a fantasy world where the Rangers are just going to keep doing everything perfect forever. And this was like, I don't want to see the reality. Get that reality out of here. So yeah, that was one thing that he said that was notable. The second thing he said was a little more notable. He suggested strongly that the pitch clock might be having an impact on injuries. 1 year into it, just 1 year, right? 1 year into the experiment.
Yeah, at least for the major league guys. I'm guessing some minor league guys have gone through it for 2 or 3 years or something like that. I don't know. It's tough. I think he was referencing one or two doctors. So it's like the smallest. It's a small sample size of a small sample size of injuries that are a lot of times formed over long term, anyways. Although they can be exasperated with working quick. Which I just think it's too early to say anything even remotely concrete about that. There's just no data. There's no real. You just can't say for sure. Injuries have already been trending up in number, and that was the other thing. Is he talking about an increased number of injuries or an increase in the relative type of injury, or how damage? And I don't even know how you quantify all that either. It was a weird. I don't know. I thought it was a weird claim, and there was not a whole lot of. Doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of merit to it.
Felt a wee bit biased. And I think that's fair. He's on his way out.
But I mean, if that's if he heard the doctor that he talks to say, "I've never seen anything like this. One these injuries I saw this year," then that could just be what that is, and it just happens that doctor saw something crazy, or maybe it is. Maybe we will find out it's a problem. I know a lot of people online are pointing to that sweeper pitch that a lot of guys are throwing now, just like a high 80s, low 90s breaking ball. And pretty much since guys started throwing that is when the Tommy John stuff really kicked off.
Ooh, interesting.
And especially older guys who pick that up and then try to throw that hard when they're older and older and older, they get injured more.
I mean, that would sound more logical to me than the faster pitching.
But again, we don't know. It could, for all we know,
Could be a little bit of both,
it could just fucking skyrocket it. We'll find out in 5 years, but.
Yeah, no, that's
also,
fair.
And I think I might have mentioned this in the whatever chat we had about it. That a lot of it really has to do with how they're growing up pitching, how much they're throwing, what kind of throwing they're doing when they're teenagers, high school, college, before they even get to the pros. So I think that's where most of these injuries come from. Is guys aren't they're just they're throwing way more than they ever did before as kids. These top-end kids are throwing hundreds of pitches for, 100 days a year.
This Kumar Rocker kid that how many times has he gone through surgery?
If you're on a national select team and you're traveling the country, you're playing a lot more than guys used to when they were just playing for their school or whatever back in the day. So a way increased workload and trying to throw too hard too early, probably, I would assume.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of advancements in the game that are attributing. And the biggest thing...
I was going to say that's one thing you see with some of these, Korean or Japanese baseball players come over that are, older but kind of can last longer, look a little bit different. They came up playing a little different. That's why their game looks a little bit different. And you see this a lot in the NBA, too. The Luka, Luka looks slow, but he's not,
Well, the European
the games that they play, that they play are different, and especially when they're kids, they're playing different games, so their pitchers don't quite always have that same.
Eating different, you know what I mean? You're it's just people don't think about how much different it is because you're just it's a basketball, it's soccer, it's a baseball.
Yeah, just like the AAU is a problem. I mean, it does good, but it's also a problem in a lot of ways. That's the same thing going on with kids in baseball.
We have high stakes Pee Wee football in Florida, you know what I mean? So this is just a different country.
Sorry, we got flag football coming up in the Olympics, and then that's just going to take over the world.
Honestly, but that was kind of my other point too. Is as much as Max Scherzer could be mad about this, even if he's right, the numbers reflect that maybe the audience. I mean, whatever the World Series numbers people want to look at is whatever, but everyone else seemed to enjoy baseball this whole season.
Yeah,
I highly doubt that they just started hating it towards the end, but whatever.
I think in general, everyone's feeling positive about the future more so than we have in a long time.
Long time. We used to laugh about baseball's death and imminent death, and now it feels like that's completely a thing of the past. So that is the relevant thing, especially because, like I said, I was going to say with football, the players hated the sissification of the sport, and now everyone is still loving the scores for the most part. There's some things with that one.
It's a different, it's just like a different type of change. In the baseball changes aren't I don't know. there's nothing quite like a roughing the passer call when you barely do. You know what I mean? Like when it was unavoidable that you're gonna hit this guy. That's way different than any. I feel like that's a way different kind of change. Maybe because it's an objective call still,
Yeah.
and that's why it
Yeah.
feels different. The baseball changes felt more like administrative than
Almost necessary.
like game than like actually like then
Almost
Whereas
as
the
revolutionary as the shot clock was to basketball, it feels like.
similar, yeah. It's just like, yeah, because in football, all the rules are advancing just the offense, but that's not necessarily what a pitch clock does by any means. It just hurries everybody the fuck up.
Yeah, it's just it sped up a game that liked to live in the gray area too much in certain ways that were just unnecessary. And it's like maybe you could talk about extending the pitch clock eventually, but I don't think you would talk about
No need.
getting rid of it at all. I'm
No,
just
I
saying
think
if
it's
they get to
fine
the
now.
science point where they're like, well, if it's 20 seconds, right?
15, 18 or 15 right now.
So there you go. I mean, you put it to 25, maybe it makes everybody
I think they were
happy.
talking about maybe I think it might be 15 when there's no one on and 18 when there's someone on or something like that. There's like a difference if there's a runner on, but I don't remember
makes
the
sense.
exact specifics. But they were talking about changing the one with runners on. I can't remember if they're talking about adding or removing time.
Mhm.
Probably removing. It's you don't need extra time. It's just get out there and get it done.
Yeah, if there's no one on, get the fuck on with the game. But if there's someone on, don't fucking pick them off 8 times either. But even
Well,
that
you
rule,
can't
I feel like
now.
helps a
Yeah,
lot. Yeah,
it's genius and
so maybe there is a difference in the future coming, and maybe injuries are part of it. But for now, Max, thank you for the title, and let's go run it back to back.
yeah.
Hall of Famer Adrian Beltre?
Could
Question
be,
mark?
should be. Yeah. I don't know if he's gonna be
think
first
I'm
ballot or not.
qualified,
I don't know
but
how the writers do their thing. But he'll get in.
he's
I
the
don't-
greatest player in our franchise in my heart. Is that enough?
For right now, yeah. Give Seager a couple more years probably.
Well, yeah. The secret thing, I guess, is it's very sudden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The conversation's probably already there. It's just it's hard for me to,
Yeah.
even with the title, get all the way there.
No,
yet.
and it's current, so it's just
Yeah.
different. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's the best one, the best guy we've ever had outside of like A-Rod and Hamilton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And Hamilton
so
only
brief,
it was
too,
only 18 months really of.
yeah. It was just so brief.
I mean, it was really good in that time. But yeah,
Yeah, it
no, I
was.
mean, defensively did it for 3 different teams. Offensively picked it up once he came over here. It was people didn't really know what to think when we picked him up out of Boston because he went and did 1 year in Boston, did really well, but people still didn't really believe in him. And then just came on board and blew it back up.
It was beautiful. I was so happy to have him. Just one of the best baseball players I've ever seen play. I thoroughly feel like we need a statue of him on the knee, all of that good stuff. It should always be a part of the Rangers lore. And although I think Pudge would have been the first, like, was Pudge the first Hall of Famer to like go in with the Texas cap, or did he? Because doesn't the cap matter more in baseball Hall of Fame?
Sometimes.
I thought that they. I thought
Did
they would-
Nolan not go in as a Ranger? I would have guessed he probably would have. He might have done nothing. No cat, like no.
Yeah, his
logo.
would be really weird.
No, it can't be. Give me a second.
So like, yeah, I don't know. That's the thing is, I thought that was a little more important. Like the NFL, they don't do it. This is the only time those good dudes are helmetless in their entire careers, basically.
Yeah, and I guess they don't really put like a
Bust.
team name on it, do they?
They don't do busts for the NBA or Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. They just they sort of enshrine people, and then there's like, I think there's just like plaques and whatnots.
So yeah, I'm guessing Ted Williams didn't go in as a Ranger.
Right. Yeah. That one. I'm gonna guess too.
Fergie Jenkins, Gaylord Perry, one of them
Okay.
could have. Goose Gossage definitely could have. Burt Blyleven, I don't know enough about. But we've got 10. We've got 10 in the MLB Hall of Fame, including Ted Williams.
We'll do it. We'll include him anyway.
I mean, he's the first manager.
Yeah. All right. Well, This one will feel very nice. Is all I guess he'd be the
I
only
mean,
Hall of
for
Famer of
us
that era.
well, no, Vlad Guerrero's in also, just not as a
Oh right,
Ranger.
Vlad.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, Vlad's a one season part of that team, right? Just one
I
season.
think he was in 2. I think he was in
Okay,
11 and 12 at least.
the ones that mattered.
Or maybe only 10 and
Um,
11. I don't remember. I just remember him dropping down to 1 knee to hit home runs. It was awesome.
yeah, yeah, because then Berkman replaced him, right?
I don't remember.
I think that's how history tells that story. Is that was the follow up to Vladdy Daddy going into retirement or whatever the fuck happened to
Yeah,
Vlad.
Napoli kind of filled that role too for a bit. It's always like
Yeah.
a fluid transition, like Ship of Theseus type stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I'll transition from that to another big local legend news where I was actually at the Dallas Stars game last night, and we were told, and it was made an announcement of. It was announced that they're going to build a statue of Mike Modano, which got thunderous applause at the arena, at the barn. So yeah, that's going to be cool. I'm guessing it's somewhere outside the American Airlines Center in the Victory Plaza.
Yeah, I actually just went over there the other night before
Excuse me.
Kings for the Kings Mavs game to eat with some friends.
You
And I
hung out with
think
Luca a
that
bit, or Dirk a bit.
yeah, I think they'll do it on the opposite side of Dirk
That would make
probably
sense.
because
Um,
Dirk comes up as you walk, and always
and it's the
was kind of
same,
weird how Dirk was
just
positioned
in
in
that
not make
corner by
sense.
himself. Yeah,
Yeah,
it does make more sense. Yeah, and it's the same person designed that one is designing this one. That doesn't mean anything to me really, but
Mhm.
just a note.
This also
That's
feels like it confirms that they're keeping the arena.
I
Like
mean
really, really.
you can move a statue really easily. They did it for the
Yeah, I
Rangers
feel you.
just across the just across the parking lot. They moved a few, so
Yeah,
uh,
these are really big ones too, though. You know what I mean? I don't know that.
dude, they moved the Statue of Liberty came from France. It
Well,
wasn't
yeah,
all
of course.
one, but
Well, yeah. I just mean like I don't know.
it's
It
very
would
easy.
be.
It's very easy to move them, and they're built in a way where you could. You just have because like Dirks is like, or yeah, Dirks is like just a corner that you could easily just chop up and pull out. But
I don't hate it. I'm curious because I know that conversation's coming within a 10-year period, and I'm
yeah,
very interested.
yeah, it's a 20-year-old arena now, right? Pushing 30,
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
25,
And it's had more than just
probably 20.
dilapidated roofs to
Yeah,
have an issue with.
they're not doing a whole lot to fix it. Although they did build that giant new video board, which was crazy. Another
That's
thing
good.
that's new that was new for me because it's my first time in there since they put that up. It's cool to look at. It's crazy. The Stars could do better with some of the way they use that space,
Mhm.
but they'll figure it out at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, I need to go and watch that. I haven't been to a game since they were doing the Brunson burner stuff.
Oh
But
man.
um,
That's
yeah,
pretty much it as far as hockey goes. Stars are playing really well. They had a poor game the other night against Colorado where they were up 3-0 and then gave up 6 unanswered and lost. But they responded last night when the game I was at against New York, who's a really good team out of the East. Won 6-3 on our end. So they're right on the top of the.
Rangers.
Yes, the New York
Right.
Rangers. One of the original 6 teams.
Right.
One of the best, I think, consistently branded franchises in sports. They always
They
look
got a
good.
lot of love and friends, you know. Like that basically put them as a part of the culture for a while. One part of the culture.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, they're if you're already into hockey at all, that's yeah. They've
I
always
would not know who the New
yeah.
York Rangers was if it wasn't for
Okay.
friends. Well, at least not until I started sort of trying to pay attention. But
Yeah.
there's probably 5 NHL teams I couldn't name right now.
Yeah. Well, we'll do a quiz sometime. But yeah, so that was a fun game. The Stars look really good. Still in first in the division. I don't think they're quite first. I think they're still a couple points behind Vegas right now with like a game in hand for the conference. Everything's lining up. Money Puck, which is a site that a lot of people look at, has the Stars as like the odds-on favorites to win the cup right now.
Hmm.
It's just kind of
Like
playing it
DFW
out,
sports
play it out,
Reloaded.
and hope hope that it's all clicking when it's the right time. Because there's not
Yeah.
really the power play is still questionable. I mentioned that last week, and I'll probably mention that throughout the year until they prove me otherwise. But
When
I
it's
don't
a
know.
seasons long problem, that's definitely very notable.
Yeah, and we're at the quarter pole-ish, I think, maybe a little bit past it. So yeah, that's it's
Serious
something to
hockey
look
being
at,
played.
and yeah, they're good, and it's really fun.
Mhm.
It's nice that they're just good. You know what I mean? It's not you're not like, oh, maybe they're all right. Like we'll see how they play against this team. We'll see how they look against this team. It's like no, they're just good,
Just fucking
and they can and will beat pretty much everybody.
beautiful. I mean, I'm excited. Honestly, I feel like there's a better chance of me going to a Stars game than a Mavs game at some point this year. So,
I think it's way more fun. I've never been to playoff basketball, so I'm sure that's really awesome. Although I would say playoff hockey is probably the best thing I've ever been to. But yeah,
it's all going to be very arena
I don't
based,
know.
and I don't know that the
Regular
Mavs.
season basketball games have never fired me up too much. But I've never been to like an important regular season basketball game.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I would say it's also just the price of things is where it gets frustrating. But I heard the Stars tickets aren't too cheap either anymore. So,
No, I mean it's not terrible, but it's not.
but for me, I can sit in the 300s for a hockey game.
Yeah, and that's the thing
If
is
I, if
that
I sit in the 300s for basketball, I'm not like
the ice is so big that wherever you sit, you got a pretty good view.
in the jumbotron. I can use that,
And yeah,
but not for basketball.
especially with the new big board.
Yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough. Also wanted to follow up on this. Do you think Mikey had to wait for Dirk?
I don't. Man, I don't know. This just seems like a trend. We'll follow this trend later. That's a tease of '90s guys getting their due, with Juan Gonzalez getting it a couple weeks ago, right before the
And his was
playoffs.
mostly because of steroid allegations, right?
No,
He
him
wasn't.
and
It was Palmero that was a part of that.
yeah, and
Okay,
that's
okay.
never really been a problem with the organization. I don't think. But
Fair, fair. I
I
just
don't
was
know.
trying to
Juan,
figure it out.
I can't remember exactly what was the deal. Juan didn't like. Juan was upset with the team, probably for not wanting to pay him way back in the day in the Tom Hicks years, and then didn't want to show up.
Uh,
Didn't want to show
so
up when we were going to honor him the first time, and blah blah blah.
so the Rangers ended up doing what the Mavericks should do with Mark McGuire.
Yeah, probably. That probably is a good, decent comparison.
That's
Um,
fair.
yeah, and yeah, so I don't know. The Madonna thing was weird the way he left because they didn't want him. They didn't want to play him anymore. So they told him no, and he went and played in Detroit for a year. Now he works for the Minnesota Wild, which it makes sense. He's from there.
Yeah,
He played up there when he started his career and all that. But that is also a little weird. But he's getting his due, and he needs to because he's the guy.
that's fair.
It's
No, and
Mike
that does actually
Mike
make me feel a little bit
No,
better.
no, that's really loud. Sorry.
It's okay. I like it. I like it.
Well, if it was loud
But
to me, that means it was really loud to you.
so it was pretty loud. It was
Yeah.
pretty loud. But so when does Jerry have any statues? I think there's Landry out there, isn't there?
I've been there a couple times, but I couldn't tell you. Landry has it, right?
There's
It's
got to
probably
be
all
a
at the
Landry one
Star.
somewhere. Yeah, there is some. Oh, there are stuff. Yeah, they do have stuff at the Star. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. I need to go there. I'm really a bad fan. I just don't care
I've
enough.
been once. It's kind of cool. They have like a little like miniature 50-yard football field that you can like run around and play on out front.
Yeah,
And there's
so I see that.
there's like funny interactive stuff you can do. I didn't go check out any of the businesses or restaurants or any of that crap, but
Yeah, I'll make a date of it probably during Christmas time when it's all lit up.
oh god.
Hey, that's at least one thing good about Dallas is they'll give you plenty of Christmas lights and Christmas crap to do.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
cool.
probably gonna be it for hockey though, unless you had anything that you thought was
Nah.
nah. I'm trying to think if there were any other cool notes. No, not really. Fun time at the game, always good time. There were a few Ranger fans there, and we summarily got them to leave with at least 5 minutes before the game ended.
That's beautiful. Very, 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 very beautiful. That's all we could ever ask for.
So then I
Cool.
think that means it's time for us to get into the week that was and the week that will be the NFL. Is that right? Or did I skip? Nope. I think I skipped over college football talk.
College foosball. College foosball. All right. College foosball. things are kind of shaping out, but there's too many people still left alive for 4 spots in the playoff, leaving plenty of people ready to speculate on how this is all going to shake out. The easiest one to pick is probably Georgia if they hold on and continue to win games.
Yeah.
The SEC, if not, it'll probably be Alabama, who is also one of the one-loss teams. And then they would probably represent. And then maybe Georgia would be the 4th team in, but we'll get to that situation in a second. The Big Ten is most likely going to have a representative. That will be decided this weekend in Ohio State, Michigan, most likely. Although I think there's still another week of games after, right? I think there's 2 weeks left.
Something like that. It's getting close.
And then the Pac-12 is probably going to be Washington representing them. But I guess Oregon still can potentially get in wins and losses. I don't quite understand. Maybe Washington already locked that in and I didn't see that. Maybe there's just 2 games left and they can lose both of them and that's it. But they're in the driver's seat. It most likely is Washington. They survived an Oregon State game. That Oregon State was actually 11th ranked for the first time in a fucking forever.
Yeah, that looked like it was going to be the game. If you're picking out games that Washington was going to drop.
So the question is, who will be the 4th team in the college football playoff? I know who we would like it to be, as the Texas Longhorns grinded out another win in Ames, Iowa this time. Not necessarily the most pretty win. The BCS wouldn't have loved it.
No, but I mean, we did it with our backup running back, true freshman. Pretty cool.
Yes, that's true. Able to somewhat move the ball.
Defense did pretty well. It was fun. That defensive line is so scary when they get through. They're so big.
I was talking about this. As you're probably not surprised, my Aggie uncle was certain that Texas is the worst one-loss team in the nation.
The worst. We beat
Yes.
Bama, but we're the worst.
He was certain. I didn't necessarily disagree because I have a lot of questions about Texas, but I obviously think that's a little biased.
I don't know if they're the best, but worst seems a little. I mean, yeah.
But my point to him was, the one thing I know about this Texas team is the offensive line and the defensive line have shown that they've grown up quite a bit for the style of play they're going to have to play in the finish this season, and of course moving into the new conference.
Yeah, they're stout.
That makes me really happy because I don't know Texas teams that have done that too much. However, it does feel like maybe you have Hill, who's kind of a special linebacker, but who else is popping on the defensive secondary side of it? There are a lot of talented players. I just don't know. I don't know how tested they've been this season in the Big 12, especially. And then
pretty much not just the Oklahoma game where they just blew it with 3 interceptions and 1 terrible drive.
And then Quinn. Quinn is the other part of this, where Quinn is just all over the place. There's an injury now. Now there's this potential ugly issue brewing with the quarterback situation. Now that he's announced that he's going to stay for another season, which he definitely needs to. The question now is, will the Mannings make this an easy process? And will that uncomfortable process begin during this season is a little bit of my question too.
I think it's one thing for him to say it now. We'll see what happens at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's a young guy. He's probably just very emotional, and who knows what he'll feel like after whatever the season becomes.
Well, and the rumors are that the Mannings will make this happen, not Arch. So maybe Arch understands that if he waits another season, he'll be primed with a better Texas team. Who knows? And what is he going to do? Transfer to Ole Miss, to Tennessee?
And it is different now because he gets to earn money just hanging out. It's not like the old days where you're like, I'm wasting my opportunity at a career. So it's a little different nowadays.
Dude.
And they're probably like, dude, just stay in college for 8 years. Just Bo Nix it up.
Honestly. Because he doesn't look like he's that big of an athlete. So he'll probably have to play himself into a draft.
The only thing he lost out on is getting that free COVID year that extended all these other guys.
Right. Well, so that's kind of the landscape. Texas in the driver's seat. They will play Texas Tech in Austin. That's a pretty. It's better to have that game in Austin than Lubbock. Yeah. That's basically the only way I can say that.
It's still scary though. It's like you guys playing the Giants or Washington in the NFL.
Yeah, it really is. Tech definitely doesn't have much to play for, and you would expect this to be their Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
They always bring it for Texas for sure.
You're gonna want to. I think Tech has another good quarterback, big shocker, or a good college quarterback. But either way, OU is going to host TCU to most likely represent the other half of the Big 12. So most likely, no matter what happens, Texas OU, even though they could both fuck each other out of a.
Did OU pass up
college playoff.
Oklahoma State somehow?
Oklahoma State, no, it's 3 losses. Three losses to Oklahoma State.
Who'd they lose to?
They followed up with that Oklahoma win with their 3rd loss. Yeah, that was what it was. We talked about that last week. That was the clarity. They have 3 losses.
Okay.
And they're playing BYU in Stillwater. So everybody hosts. The only way Oklahoma State gets in is if Oklahoma loses. But no, I think it's just OU Texas, right?
So Kansas State 6-2, Oklahoma State 6-2 in conference. So Kansas State and Oklahoma State are both tied with Oklahoma in conference play.
That makes sense.
So there's a 3-way tie for second.
But does the third loss?
It looks like it's not a conference loss. Whatever it is.
It was that South Alabama loss or whatever.
Yeah. But in conference, you got Texas 7-1, and then OU, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State 6-2.
Interesting.
Those are all top 25 teams right now.
So yes, I definitely forgot about Kansas State because Kansas State is right there too, and they're the ones who won it last year. So
6-0 at home.
It does feel like no matter what, the Oklahoma Sooners and the Texas Longhorns are primed and ready for a rematch in Dallas, Texas. Isn't it in Dallas?
Arlington, I guess. They probably play.
Yeah, Arlington. Yeah, you're right. Say in this case, we should specify since the other game is literally
an actual game in Dallas. Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
We can make fun of what are they calling the Baylor TCU game now? The Blue Bonnet Bowl.
I heard about the Blue Bonnet Bowl as well. An interesting conversation. Both I had Baylor people not so excited about it.
No one's excited about it. Everyone loves the revivalry. It's not an official nickname, but it's the best nickname in college sports.
Well, that's probably going to end up needing to go to like maybe BYU because BYU Baylor has potential to really because they have multiple sports that they'll contend at.
But we've already been calling this game that for long enough that.
Well, it's okay. The new Big 12 is just going to be nothing but religious schools moving forward. I don't know how they're going to get there, but they're going to make it happen.
Cincinnati's looking around like, what the hell happened?
West Virginia just all of a sudden is a private religious school.
Tech's just like, yeah, that's cool. We don't give a fuck.
Texas Tech Baptist University. All right. Yeah, so
I mean, it's not too out there to think Joel Osteen could buy one of them. Is Houston in the Big 12 now?
Yeah, Houston's in the Big 12 now. There you go. All right, Joel Osteen. So there you go. So basically, the doomsday scenario for Texas fans is only in my mind. Alabama wins the SEC. Georgia does enough to keep people wanting them in, and then the Big 12 sucking like donkey dick hurts them.
I don't think that a one-loss Alabama and a one-loss Texas, and then Georgia also in their one-loss, I don't think they're going to put in both, especially with Texas beat Alabama. I think I much as they don't want it, as much as they might not want it to.
SEC. We're not talking about 2 Pac-12 teams. We're not talking about 2 Big 10 teams. We're talking about are they going to keep out 2 SEC teams that are both really good?
They'll keep one out.
Have one loss.
Yeah, they'll keep one out.
Or keep one out. Whatever. Yeah, keep one.
Yeah. And the real nightmare, I think the real nightmare scenario is that Texas gets in as the 4 and just gets stomped.
Well, they're probably the 4 because Washington's been good all year. Ohio State's probably beating Michigan, and Georgia's probably winning out.
Yeah.
So
and you don't want to go into that game and just get trounced. You don't want a 40-pointer hung on you, something like that.
And so
because that would really make everything feel bad after a really good season.
Yeah, I mean, at least Texas wouldn't have the same issue TCU does, where they had to actually, retain, or they didn't retain any of the team that got them to that big loss.
No, for sure. I mean, Texas is always poised to just bring it back if they need to.
You could argue Texas has a better shot next year, no matter what happens. But maximize your time in the Big 12 for sure, because who knows how many wins you get next year.
I mean, and kind of like we were talking about with the Rangers, you just don't know when you'll be back. So,
yeah.
When you're there,
Rangers will be back next year. I do know that. I've already written it down. I manifested it already. I've got crystals all around the apartment just for that reason.
I don't know what to do with that. He's got crystals.
So the only last bit of college football news to talk on: Florida State, the quarterback went down with a Dak Prescott-esque injury. His college career is now over.
His leg turned around the wrong way.
Yes, he snapped his ankle essentially. So Florida State went from poised to win the ACC and potentially be another reason why Texas doesn't get in. Potentially, probably not, but potentially. And they have 2 weeks. They have a game against Florida this week, and then they finish with Louisville, who is 10-1 right now and would be the other team that would win the ACC. Though I highly, highly doubt that they get in over any of the other one-loss teams if that was the scenario. No offense, Louisville. The game is the game.
Yeah, probably right. That's one where you're looking at it like, too bad it wasn't next year, or the year after, or whatever.
Yeah, or maybe you save face and you get to beat somebody who's disappointed for beating the bowl they're in.
I mean, they'll get like a New Year's Day bowl or whatever.
Yeah, you still get a great bowl out of it usually.
Yeah, bowls are weird.
They are weird.
I get it.
They're good, like little fixes.
I mean, it's better than just the season just being over. That's cool, but
you get to be like, dude, Tom Herman, Sam Ellinger, they just won the Sugar Bowl. Things are changing forever.
Sometimes they can mislead you. Yes.
So, it happens, bro. Was it a Sugar Bowl? Did I remember that right?
Against Georgia, probably. I think that sounds right.
Yeah, the one that Georgia crybabied their way out of.
Where Bevo almost took out Uga.
Yeah, that's definitely it. All right, well, that's college football. Hopefully go Horns.
We had a damn, it's still so loud. Cow hopped up on drugs going after a little bulldog.
Also, shout out to my Mean Green, who I believe are 1 win away from bowl eligibility now. Is that right? Let me see.
I hope so. You had me hit the applause, so.
I hope I'm right. I think I'm right. And we also could finish better than Deion Sanders' team. Which, who would have thought? We're 10th in the AAC, though. God damn, must be a good conference this year.
It's all relative, man.
No, dude, I think we just played a powerhouse. Oh my God! Come on, what is this?
All
right, well, this is
what, Tulsa, Memphis.
Well, dude, I'm just trying to get the schedule, and it's not even that easy to get because people just don't care.
Which conference?
4 and 7. Damn, 4 and 7.
Oh no, you need 2.
Yeah, we need 2.
The American Athletic Conference. And you guys are 2 and 5 in conference. Not great.
No. 10th in conference. So yeah. Not great. Who are finishing the season out?
Alabama, Birmingham.
Gross. Well, that's it for and it's senior day. So you know what? Instead of the bowl eligibility thing, our bad. Maybe enough shitty teams happen, and that still happens. But let's just win the senior night.
Yeah. Fair enough.
All right, and we still could finish at least tied or better than Colorado Buffaloes. So that's still true too.
Yeah, that's I like knowing that if we go back to the early season that you'll hear me telling everyone to cool their effing jets on Colorado.
We didn't want to. We wanted to believe, and then we learned all together that logic was always going to win.
Yeah.
It happens.
It's how the Colts' personality usually works.
But we'll see what happens with Deion in the next chapter. It's not over yet.
Oh, it's definitely no. He's got a lot of run left in him. Whatever he wants to do, I think he can pretty much do. So,
I agree. All right. Well, if we're done talking about semi-pro football, as I like to call it now, I don't feel like amateurs has been useful for a long time, but specifically now more than ever. In a good way. I don't mean that in a negative way. I like kids getting paid for concussions. You know what I'm saying? They're going to take the brain injuries and the body injuries, pay those kids their money. Actually, honestly, you may argue that you get better money playing in that league than the league we're about to talk about.
Now,
The
for some people.
National Football League. So unfortunately, we don't have all of the content from our football guru, but we will make up for it. Somehow, some way, we will make up for it.
My
A
bad.
lot of great football happening. The Eagles did win as I predicted. You know what I mean? So I'm just throwing that out there. That was unbiased and has no agenda behind it. Even though I just went stated my prediction is still on track.
It is too bad that we don't have the video of me talking to Cesar about that game and me having no idea how any of it went. Just kind of like, yeah, man, Eagles look good.
From what I understand, obviously there was plenty Taylor Swift references, but the most important part of it was that the Kansas City Chiefs have no wide receivers because they didn't pay Tyreek Hill, who should be the MVP. Although CJ Stroud deserves his shout out, I'm sure Caesar gave him, but
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit, whether or not they would give him Rookie of the Year and MVP. And I think if he just keeps doing what he's doing, it kind of he forces their hand. If he gets Houston into the playoffs, I mean, my God.
bro, you know what? Like, what quarterback deserves the MVP? You giving it to Jalen Hurts just because?
Him or maybe Josh Dobbs. Let's see what he does for the last few weeks.
But like, I'm not hating on Jalen Hurts, especially here. I'm not
No,
wearing
I mean-
the Cowboys hat, especially. I'm just saying, is that truly the MVP, or is he just the best,
No.
or is he just the leader? He's the quarterback on the best team.
I mean, Purdy's really good too.
But then Purdy's missed time, so then you argue that's why you make the easy argument for Hurts right now. And that if it has to be a quarterback.
Yeah, right. And yeah, it could be. But I mean, Stroud should at least be talked about.
It should be. And you know what?
And again, it's still we're barely we're at halfway or just over halfway, so he's still got time to. As most of these MVP talks go this time of year, whoever it is, Mahomes. We're not talking about him right now, but Mahomes is probably going to go ahead and Mahomes and win it.
Yeah, I mean he's always the candidate. I've been entertaining conversations with Jesus, our dear friend, about Dak Prescott, and I'm like, hey man, it's not out of the question. I'm just not predicting it either.
I think
it's
even if he turned it
there.
up for the end of the season, he didn't do enough in some of the earlier games to get it because they didn't really. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. They're like slowly easing the tap open with him throughout the season. So
that's the logic you would put. If you were to put it on it, you would say it's an open race mid-season. The Cowboys are decent, and they look like they're going into a stretch where they could get everybody back on their real again side if they win a bunch of games. And if they win a bunch of games, it's most likely because of that guy. So I get where the argument comes in. I'm just not trying to pencil it in and call it in the bookie yet. You know what I mean?
Oh no! I mean, you could probably get some pretty good odds on Dak right now. I think he's like 5th or 7th or something like that. But
I hope it happens, but I just feel like
a lot of football left to play.
There's a lot. Yeah, it's a tough one, man.
And history is not on his side.
It's not, and I really haven't loved a lot of even the last few weeks of Cowboy football, like to even go that far, even though he's played really well. So it's just one of those things where I'm excited that we're having a conversation that feels not just like crazy Cowboy talk about it, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's that realistic still.
What do you think about if Deron Bland gets another pick 6 that he should get Defensive Player of the Year?
I think he probably would at that point, just because they're so lazy.
5. That's 30 points. I mean, those 30 points he scored for a defense. That's crazy. No one's ever done that before like that.
It would be the record. So that's kind of where I'm on the same page with it. At least he's an all-pro lock. That's kind of cool.
Dude, he's been, and I don't know, it's tough, because that's a weird circumstance. Like, obviously there's some skill involved. There's obviously a ton of luck involved as well with just circumstances working out, You got to put yourself in the spot, and you have to execute and make the play, and you have to be able to run it back. But there is still a fluke nature to it. Same with like when Trayvon Diggs had like 10 weeks where he was just picking everything off. It's like
they're both
a balance
easy.
of you need the luck and the skill.
They're both easy to explain in my mind. So Trayvon, yes, Trayvon is a ball hawk by nature. Trayvon will almost always, depending on how he comes back from injury, will almost always care a little bit more about playing the ball than getting the route right, which will sometimes be bad, right? We've seen that on tape. So that's how he does it, right? That's how you explain the numbers with him. With Bland, it's kind of simple, and it's a little more sexy to me because it's a little more pragmatic, right? Like we're talking about, Bland is really only taking a few. It's basically the same routes over and over again that he's got these on, right? And a lot of times, even the other interceptions. How many interceptions does he have total?
I'm not sure. I can figure it out real
Wait,
quick.
probably 3 more than that. I think something like that, or maybe that's a little high. But he's had a great season, and it's really a part of who he is. Now, is he a little small? Is he not maybe the best athlete ever? So sometimes you'll see touchdowns being scored on him. I think that's reality of Deron Bland. But like at the end of the day, he's a very smart player,
He's
and I
a
think that's
6 so far.
6. So two non. So
He's
there you go.
tied for the most with the Ravens safety Geno Stone.
There you go.
Not
So,
bad
yeah,
for a fifth rounder.
Yes, I'm very happy with Deron.
That's your
Bland.
Stephen Will McClay love that you're gonna get right there.
But the reality is still like it sucks because
And
this
Dan
season we
Quinn.
could be talking about just the most impressive corner group ever, right? Because I like Ty Dolla Sign to some extent, but like he's better. Like if I could just have minimal Ty Dolla Sign, I think he
Yeah.
would be perfect. And then if it was Diggs being the athlete that I need in case I have a really big athlete, like that's really the thing with Diggs is like even though he's going to play the balls goofy, his athleticism sometimes can help you with the AJ Greens, help you with some, you know what I mean, help you or AJ Brown, sorry, AJ Green, help you with the with these really big body receivers. Where Bland is always going to struggle in that department. He's not a big guy, so it's exciting though, exciting. And Will McClay, you keep doing what you're doing.
Maybe someday they'll give you that job title.
Yeah, officially, he probably. My guess is he gets the actual job title when there's the official changing of the guard after that thing happens. That will eventually happen, but we're not going to talk into existing.
I don't know. I think they set a date for that actually.
Well, we are in need of some Jerry news to break. Jerry surprised the whole world Sunday morning and warmed the hearts of Cowboys Nation by randomly as fuck calling up his old buddy Jimmy Johnson and having him meet him at the Carolina game for whatever reason. Doesn't seem clear to me why, but I guess because there's enough time to announce it before the game that they'll actually do it.
I've got my own theories. He found out Mike Madonna was getting a statue. The Rangers just won the World Series, and on a less happy note, maybe a diagnosis.
That I do feel like is an interesting part of this. And
For one, maybe not for him, maybe for Jimmy. I mean,
I was very happy to hear Jimmy say this because that is my concern, and that's why it's been. I used to make fun of the curse, used to just basically write it off because like how else are you going to deal with being a Cowboys?
yeah,
fan?
Theory 4-1 Gonzalez did all this.
Well, and maybe he was the starter of all this, but for me, it really was starting to get like worryful because you could see Jimmy's like health sort of declining. It felt like a little, or his mental state, it felt like was declining a little bit. You can tell Fox is starting to replace him with Gronk, right? You can tell that they're already starting to think about a world that Jimmy Johnson's not.
Doesn't someone still let Terry Bradshaw on the air?
Terry Bradshaw, I don't know. There's something with backwoods hillbillies where they can just live forever, and like Jerry and Jimmy really, I think, or Jerry and Terry Bradshaw, I think they just are cut from that same cloth. Like Brett Favre's gonna be 100 years old doing Patriot Mobile ads. You know what I mean? Like there's just something about it. Jimmy's a country boy, but not really. Jimmy's like I think he's from the north and then moved to the country or whatever it is. Actually, he might be a South Texas boy, and then he's a Florida guy for life, right? He loves Florida. He loves fishing. I've always had the joke about the witch doctor, that he met the witch doctor after Jerry fired him, put the curse on the Cowboys, and the rest is history. Now we find out if the witch doctor actually, because if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl this year, he did. If
Do witch doctors create mascots?
I mean, Rowdy might have been the manifestation. That might be the last Horcrux.
He's like the Horcrux, yeah. It's Rowdy, and it's actually Spalding or whatever, Jerry's grandson.
To sacrifice one of the Joneses. All right. Well,
Back
either
to-
way, we're very
fictional
happy.
world.
We're very happy.
And
that
yeah, so there's
this
more
happened.
there's more confusing things. Why the Carolina game?
Yeah, that doesn't make a fucking bit of
Was-
sense. Other
was
than I
his-
guess maybe he
and
thought they would win
that's-
for sure.
Or my thinking was they were like, no one's gonna watch this game of all of our games this year, so let's get people to watch by throwing this on, because it
That's
was
true.
like happening when the game started, right? Like,
It was like an hour before that all the like Brad Sham started getting cheeky on Twitter and talking about Cowboys fans will be excited. And then the video of them coming in
well,
and
I heard
everyone just thought it was a joke.
Joe Trahan, who I think works for ABC. I think he's ABC sports guy. He was saying that like the night before, someone in the organization basically texted everyone in the media that was like, tomorrow, like big, like they all got the heads up the day before. I don't think any of them even really thought this was what it was going to be.
So
from
this
what I
does
could
feel a
tell.
little worryful then, in that regard. Like maybe there is some other news coming with one of their healths.
I don't know. I hope not. I hope it is just they finally figured it out, and then we can get to the actual content of the press conference. which is
Yes, the
just
best part. Well, the thing that will live through history and echo forever. I'll show
wheels
my
off.
children.
Jerry claiming he's gonna induct him in 1923.
Yeah, that was a great part. Very subtle part, but it did get noticed.
Jerry saying that they've always gotten along. There's never
They
been
both-
any. There's
Jerry
never been
made
any
it seem like
problem.
there was never a single day of beef. Which is definitely wild. We don't have to
But
explain
I will
how
say,
wild
while he said that, he also multiple times mentioned like, I do know people have emotions, and these
Yeah.
emotions got in the way of this. So he did acknowledge that while also saying there was never anything bad between them.
he was like, "It's all Steven. My son just hated it. It was
yeah,
all him."
that would have been funny.
Oh,
Could have blamed Rich Dalrymple,
Yeah. Oh,
kicking
yeah.
while he's down.
Yeah, it's fair. Maybe. Well, maybe it's good that Jerry didn't. There's still some other candidates he could have pinned on this, but I think it's probably better that he just did the Jerry apology his way, because I think that was a Jerry apology. I think that's the closest you'll ever get to a Jerry apology.
Yeah, him actually halfway acknowledging that there were emotions at all, that he has emotions that weren't just, and I'm good and I feel good and I do and we do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you could even tell that Jimmy didn't give a goddamn what Jerry said, because he was just happy this was happening before he was dead, or like couldn't walk anymore.
Well, I mean, and I guess maybe, I don't know, the way I've always understood it was Jimmy really doesn't, like, this is cool for him, but once he got in the Hall of Fame, that was, for him, that
I
was
think
the
he
thing.
says that, but if I was Jimmy Johnson, it would mean more for the Cowboys to me, because Jerry really has got to live so much of that. Like I'm sitting with a Cowboys fan the other day, and they don't even know who Jimmy is, and you know what I mean? Like seriously, like there's so many people who don't understand that, because it looks like just a blip on the radar that he was a coach for such a short period of time, and it just doesn't look like he's fairly given the credit all the time, and it's just like without him, this is the New York Knicks, literally. Like,
I mean, I guess anyone who's paid attention to the general conversation knows that that's Jerry's whole thing, or like the narrative of Jerry's whole thing is that he's trying to win one without Jimmy.
yeah.
And can't do it because he won't give his coaches, because he won't give his
Well,
he won't give
he
up
did
control
win
of
one
the.
without-
Not
he did
really
technically
though.
win it. Well, in his mind, he probably, in his mind, he did.
I don't think so, because he still behaves like he didn't.
Maybe because we haven't let it go, and maybe he never like got the satisfaction. But in the moment,
Because he didn't
did.
build that team. Like he wanted to build his own team and do
Right,
it,
right.
and that hasn't happened yet.
All he's done is
11 years of
build-
care, it didn't get it done.
build great. No, just 10 years, I think. I think it was an even 10,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. A lot of awesome decisions by Jerry in the last
But
20,
anyways,
30 years. of his life.
none of that to distract from the fact Jimmy's going in and he belongs in, and it's good.
And it's just going to mean a lot for the Cowboy fans, because it's just so stupid, too, man. It's just like, you look at the Ring of Honor and you're like, this is perfect. And then you're just like, there's just the most obvious name
It's only
missing.
missing the architect of the greatest team that might have ever been built.
So, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, just make him more a part of it. I also hope that when we walk into the stadium, you'll see more Jimmy stuff. than there has been in the past. So all of that stuff is what I want to see. It's just like with the Rangers. It's like I want the culture and the history of this team to be obvious and to be a part of it, because it's one of the better things about sports in general is like having this history that you get to pass on and remember and cherish forever, even if you weren't part of it all. Like I still respect Landry, and I don't have a single emotional connection with Tom Landry.
No,
I don't even really have much emotional connection with Jimmy Johnson, other than just like the fact that it's just such an atrocity that I've had to just like. It just, for me, it feels like karma has been getting Jerry Jones's ass as much as anything. So like,
I mean, I think Jerry versus Jimmy is one of the coolest sports stories, and I know that they're making a Netflix documentary on Jerry right now, and hopefully at some point we get like a third party Jerry Jimmy conversation when they're both gone, but I don't know.
I'll at least say this,
because I don't think either of them were really like careful with who they talked to and what they said when they were upset about things and drunk.
Well, no, yeah, that's why that's fucking what Jeff Pearlman's making hella dough still to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is obviously something to be interested about. That's all the Cowboys talk. Cowboys won. The Panthers aren't a very good team, but I thought they played pretty well for a bit. They kind of slept a little bit, and then it all just sort of unfolded, and the score looks like it was a much more,
I mean, yeah,
dominant game.
The rosters alone kind of let you know what that should look like, and then I don't know if you wanted to touch on just real quickly. You pretty much have the same game this week, but against a division opponent.
I would say it's a little bit higher stakes, just because I don't think Washington's entirely a terrible team, at least talent-wise, and they just got humiliated by losing to the Giants, so now it's like double stacked a little bit. So in my mind, this has just been a slow progression into the hard part of the schedule. You get the Giants, who are basically practice. Then you get the Panthers, who aren't a good team, but are so far into their season, they're decently healthy enough to where you're getting the best possible product out of the Panthers. And I'm pretty sure I saw the best possible product out of the Panthers. It's just, it all kind of snowballs when you're a young, bad team. And it did to them. Like, they probably were, like, I haven't watched a lot of Panther games. They were probably very competitive in a lot of them, and similar things happen. The stakes just pile up quickly. The Washington game, like I said, this one feels like a team that talent-wise probably should be competing for a playoff spot, but thanks to everything that comes with the Washington Commanders, they're not close to that potential at all right now. So now it's, only the way Ron Rivera saves his job for another week is likely beating Dallas and Arlington on Thanksgiving, right? So
yeah.
You also just don't want to think about the injury issues that could happen. Just with a team as physical and competitive as Washington has been in the last few years, even though they've kind of hemorrhaged a lot of those big, scary guys on the line. So I don't know. I feel fine about it, but you're right in the sense that it's the same game as if you win, great, you should have. If you lose, fucking idiots.
Yeah. I think y'all will be okay. I'm pretty confident in the way you're playing right now.
And is it Dolly Parton this year?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the, so
yeah,
you gotta do it for Dolly.
Dolly's playing halftime.
You can't do what Tennessee did for Dolly last
I think Jack Harlow is halftime of Green Bay, Detroit, and I don't know who's doing halftime for the night game. Seattle and San Francisco, maybe? Is that who
almost had Green Bay Lions as my watch it, just because all the times I've watched them get their ass kicked on Thanksgiving Day, I hope that they get to do the same to the Green Bay Packers. That's all Lions talk.
Yeah, me and Cesar talked about it a little bit. Oops, sorry. Me and Cesar talked about it a little bit. I was like, I don't ever want the Packers to win, and normally I would rather the Lions win, but obviously this year I need the Lions to lose some games somewhere, so I've got a slightly vested interest. But either way, I'm not going to be happy with the end of that game.
Fair. So then we'll talk about the last two topics before we get into that. The first one I didn't mention to you pre-show, but I have to mention it, especially if Cesar gets to do his thing, because I know he won't mention it no matter how much time you give him. Brock Purdy had a perfect passer rating, and the 49ers, they still look like maybe that would be the team I would pick, even though
they're heating back up. They had a couple of weeks there where it didn't look good, but they heated right back up.
And I don't hate kind of getting like that's where it's like I feel like it's completely fair and reasonable to be confident and ecstatic about where the Eagles are. But there is a part of me that knows football history, and it's like the more that they keep getting away with it in the regular season, the more it makes me doubt that they'll continue in the postseason. And the 49ers now kind of feel like they've got that little bit of patch through, you know? So I don't know. I just find that interesting. It was against the Tampa Bay team. That is what it is. It's
I mean, they're competitive.
mediocre on a good day.
Yeah, I mean, they're good on a good day, mediocre on most days, I would say.
Yeah. So they're not. It wasn't a world-beating team, but just to go out there and execute their strategy. The 49ers we will bring up again in a second, so I'm just gonna move on. Just wanted to mention that Brock Purdy had a perfect game. The other quarterback thing that we wanted to talk about, Joey Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals have a lot of people quite perturbed. So Joe Burrow is out for the remainder of the season after a wrist injury, I guess is what they've essentially called it.
Something like that.
You know,
Forearm
injury, whatever. So the controversy came in when on Thursday, as many people have reported, and one particular person has reported and cried the loudest on, that we'll get to in a second, that they woke up and decided, hey, there's Thursday Night Football. I've got to do what I like to do best. Gamble. I need to put some fucking money on this game. And they said, Bengals, Ravens, I'm putting some money on. You know what? Joe Burrow is going to upset the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. I'm about to put money. Let me look at the injury report. Good. Joe Burrow's not on this injury report? Oh my God, of course I'm taking this. Look at, this is perfect. Joe Burrow doesn't finish the game. In fact, the game starts to swing when a non-contact injury occurs to the same wrist that's been taped prior to the game. Something that allegedly was posted to social media and then removed later. I didn't know if that was actually done by the Bengals or somebody else. And a lot of people lost money. Because the Bengals didn't do jack shit, and the Bengals probably won't do a whole hell of a lot moving forward with God knows who at quarterback.
Yeah, I don't even know. Do they let Zach Taylor just go in there and play?
I think it was Jake Browning. Is it who it was, or something like that? Some kid who played at Washington for a bit, I think.
Sure, why not?
So like a decent backup type, but like definitely not anyone that you're like, oh, is this, you know? But and they're not built
no one that's gonna keep him competitive and against the Ravens and the Chiefs and maybe the Bills, maybe.
Well, the thing is, the Bills are probably the luckiest team in this because now it sort of maybe fixes the Bengals' problem, especially because they go into an Eagles game where if the Eagles beat them, then they're 6-6, right? So
doesn't solve any of the Bills' own problems.
It doesn't, but it gives them more opportunities to fix their own problems. And sometimes in the NFL, that's what you need, is opportunities to fix your problems, right? Like, that's kind of how I feel about the Cowboys. It's like, I don't feel that great about them in a lot of ways, but they have opportunities to fix their problems. That's all you could really ask for, especially with quarterback play, the injuries. It's all I feel like you could really ask for. At least this far into the season. So that's pretty much it. The guy crying the loudest, Barstool head honcho, Dave Portnoy, aka the worst guy you know's favorite person on earth. And so yeah, it's only funny because I only bring him up because it's him and because Barstool is so important to the gambling culture. I have to feel like this is going to gain some real traction as far as just the NFL having to do something with this moving forward. Like, no one's going to get their money back, but there's going to be some reaction to this. The NFL is going to make some changes, I would expect, to the injury reports.
Yeah, I guess the only problem I have with the conspiracy idea is that he went out there and risked hurting it again for just a day of gambling. That doesn't sound like they would do something they would do, but.
Well, right. No, I don't think that. I think the defrauding part is as simple as the Bengals were just incompetent, and all these people were also incompetent for betting on the Bengals, is how I feel about it.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what the rules are for what they're required to report.
Well, you saw Joe throw the football after the injury, right?
Nah,
you saw that he couldn't even.
Oh, on the sideline, yeah, I saw that.
He couldn't even grip the ball. I mean,
yeah.
he looked like he had never thrown a football a day in his life. That's not good for.
I know. I'm just saying. But like that, is that what he looked like before the game started, or was he throwing the
So
ball?
that would have been after the injury.
So it's
yeah.
like, I mean, what are you supposed
But
to?
the injury, but that would have been, it was a non-contact injury, so he exacerbated a pre-existing injury. That's why.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't. But again, I don't know what the rules stipulate for what they're required to tell you about. Because if he's in the starting lineup and starting, I don't know that he necessarily. Yeah, in hockey they get away with just doing upper body and lower body injury. So like he's out with a lower body injury, and it's like, all right, he could have lost a foot. His femur might be broken, or he could just have a bruised butt.
I don't know what the actual numbers would reflect, but I would almost guess that the NFL is the highest in terms of gambling revenue, right?
Sure,
You probably get the most money from
NBA,
people
man,
gambling on the
NBA,
NFL.
because there's more
So
games
much of it,
often.
baseball.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would think
maybe
NBA.
that's
I would think NBA more than baseball, but
then. Yeah, then if you did it to account for the longevity of the two seasons, then I think that you would probably the numbers would reflect the NFL probably disproportionately. But maybe
probably
you're right.
larger single bets because it's all
Yeah.
once a week.
Yeah. And college football, I guess they would, if you did put them together, especially.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. I mean, I'm not crying here. If you want to gamble, go gamble. Be responsible about it. If you put, I think you put like 40 or 400K on the game. If you do some shit like that, I don't feel bad for you. Especially if you own the fucking, the Fart Joke Weekly.
Yeah, and he
you
bought it
have
for
all
$1, dude.
Yeah, dude. Like, I don't get out of here. I'm not feeling bad for Barstool.
Maybe he's thinking the money he saved on only buying it back for $1 he should use on gambling.
Yeah, dude. Like, you have a fucking person who's gonna write that off on your taxes anyway. Suck my dick. So that's how I felt about that particular part of that last storyline. I don't think there's any other NFL storylines we need to hit. We can just do the watch it, skip it, and train wreck. Maybe C's does another if he wants.
Watch it.
Skip it.
I like that. For the watch it game, to continue on the 49ers conversation, I've picked the 49ers versus the Sea Chickens. I picked this game because I am interested to see the 49ers do this again.
I'll let you finish, but I will tell you that Cesar was skipping Thanksgiving games for these because these are all watch games because it's Thanksgiving.
Fair enough. I didn't include it. Oh, yeah, that game is Thanksgiving.
But still explain because it is a good game, and I think
What?
I'm not always been a big fan of having a third game on Thanksgiving, but at least this is a good one.
Well, we already talked about the other two Thanksgiving games anyway, a little bit, so fuck it. 49ers Sea Chickens wraps up the day. I think the Seahawks have an interesting opportunity here, obviously, because they have two more games. Basically, it's Seattle. This is the 49ers schedule. Seattle, Philly, Seattle. So that's a very fun stretch for 49ers fans to learn who their team really is. And for the rest of us to start to see Brock Purdy get his chances to not look so great, right? You have your closest division rival twice, and then you have the team that literally, at this point, is the only one on paper that can stack up with you. In your own conference, at least. So that is the reason I highlighted the 49ers, because even though last week was awesome, perfect Purdy, all that good shit, now we get to all watch and see what the reality of the San Francisco 49ers season is likely to be. I still like the Seattle Seahawks. I think they're very similar to my football team, where they're decent. They've got kind of what they need to win games, and they've got an opportunity. So while I won't pick either of those teams to win a Super Bowl, I don't hate being in the position of either one of them, because we know how wild cards can take off in football. So that's why I'm also interested in the Sea Chickens. I want to see how much more real they could be, or if they are just simply, an easy one and out in the playoffs. Skip it is past Giants. I don't think I need to. Yeah, if Mac Jones isn't going to start that game, it's going to be fucking Danny DeVito versus someone else, Bailey Hoppy,
Brent
right?
Zappi or whatever.
Yeah, Bailey Zappi. Yeah. So that's tragic. We're talking about a two times we've seen these two teams play for a historic game. Historic moments that were so historic that even as a division rival, I couldn't root against the Giants. And now we're looking at this.
That's sorry.
We were watching the pinnacle of quarterback play in two Super Bowls between two of the greatest future Hall of Famers we'll ever see.
It's insane. It doesn't make any sense, and it never will.
And that's why it makes me sad. So skip this game. Go
Skip it.
back and watch the fact
Skip
that
it.
Eli Manning is going to the Super Bowl for beating Tom Brady twice. Just
The
do it
Hall of
instead.
Fame,
Yeah, what'd I say?
Super Bowl.
Same thing.
It would be crazy if they just let him play another one. They're like, you know what? You beat Tom twice.
So the other thing. So speaking of, Eli Manning may have competition. The Cleveland Browns. We don't have to get too far into that one just yet, but I'm not ruling out Joe Flacco adding to the Hall of Fame or getting into the Hall of Fame off a couple games.
I don't know. Yeah, I think he's always going to be a borderline guy. He had he had the best run in a playoffs pretty much anyone ever had.
He's got a good defense.
But
Thomas Robinson, it's Thompson Robinson, I think.
I don't know. But
he's an athlete, but maybe Joe Flacco just knows how to run the offense better.
I think the Browns are a really good spoiler team this year for a lot of people, but I don't think they're going to make make a big enough splash.
Oh man! But I just want to live in just a 5-second reality where Joe Flacco could potentially win a Super
Where he gets
Bowl
a
this
second
year.
Super Bowl ring with another team coming out of retirement.
Baltimore and Cleveland too. That feels like it's interesting.
The same team but different teams.
Exactly. So that's it. And then my train wreck game, the game that I think could end up being the ugliest game, is the Falcons and the Saints. Historically, both these teams have played ugly football to this point in the season, so that's a big part. But secondly, Desmond Ridder is going to start again for the Falcons. We saw how that went. And the Saints are going to play at quarterback because Derek Carr is still in concussion protocol, and famous Jameis had another Jameis game and a loss to the Vikings in the last outing. Two touchdown, 2 interception, famous Jameis game. So
It's perfectly balanced.
I'm just saying, turnovers. You want to take a prop bet on some turnovers? Here's your game. Otherwise, don't watch this game. Or if you want to watch this game, watch it like a sicko you are.
Yep, I agree with that one. I'm trying to think if there was any other ones. I thought there was a chance that you could describe Dolphins Jets as a train wreck if the Dolphins put up 70, but they probably won't. So
yeah, Seaman will probably keep that game close. They officially benched what's his name?
Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
After he took down Robert Saleh on the sideline.
Yeah, Trevor Seaman is officially the quarterback again.
For a week. We'll see.
Well, yeah, for however long until
It's gotta be
Achilles
frustrating. Yeah, it gotta be frustrating when you go into the season. You're like, all right, we got it. It's all ready to go.
Hey, he's coming back. He was on Pat McAfee again today. Who knows what he said, but I'm sure it's something was quotable.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, that's pretty much the NFL.
Yeah.
Unless you want to talk about the Viking stuff at all.
They kind of blew it in the fourth. They just started the season so far behind. They could still sneak in with a 7 seed, but I don't really trust anything going on. It's fun to watch. I'm still enjoying it, but I don't have a lot of high expectations. Who are we playing this week? The Bears on Monday night.
So that's the true test of if your guy's a pumpkin, right? In my mind.
Could be, yeah. We still haven't hit our bye week either, which has got to be coming up soon. So yeah, I mean, there's some fun games to watch. I think we're still looking at 2 teams in the NFC with a couple of other trailers. I think you guys are kind of in your own little slot right below those other 2 right now.
I think we're just stuck looking for the 5th seed at this point.
I'm just worried. I'm worried if I was you guys, I'd be worried that you're playing so well right now, because it's hard to sustain that for another.
See, but I've watched the Cowboys, and I don't think they're playing that well right now either. So that's where it's like they're playing good enough, but I don't know that this is the peak of what this team could be. So that's where I'm still a little hopeful, but I'm also realistic. I don't expect the Cowboys to do anything better than 5th, obviously, because of the Eagles. So
yeah,
the nature of the beast.
Eagles, and I mentioned this with Cesar earlier. The Cardinals loss was such a big deal for the conference and for seeding for the Cowboys that that kind of puts them way behind the 8 ball or whatever. But that's the Vikings and the Cowboys. and I'm gonna have to break the news to Cesar, seeing that I wasted an hour of his day.
And then
But otherwise,
he'll make up for it. I feel good about it.
I just feel bad. But yeah. Otherwise, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Eat some turkey, and do all those other things. I think I'm actually going to have Korean barbecue for Thanksgiving tomorrow or Thursday, whenever that is, 2 days from now.
I feel you. I just got lucky enough to where I'm off last minute on Black Friday. Where, banks are, they're kind of weird. It's like, oh, we are going to open, but I work virtually, so I was going to do it in LA anyway. But it's nice not to have to fly with a bunch of equipment.
Yeah, no kidding. Yep.
Go do it and actually enjoy an LA free day on a Friday. Oh my god.
Well, that's cool, man. Have fun out there. Y'all be safe, and we'll see everybody next week.
Deuces.